Anthony with The Weekly Buffer, an innovation and tech today podcast where we usually give you 3 tech stories, 5 minutes each. Today we're doing something a little bit different though. Today I am joined by
Patricia Miller.
And I'm Adam.
And we are actually going to do a full review here of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. We were lucky enough, the people at Sony provided us with some tickets on Saturday.
Thanks, guys. Thanks.
Got a nice little advanced screening of it, and we all met up. We saw it. I was late.
We're not going to talk about that.
Yeah, we don't. It doesn't matter though.
But no, yeah. Spider-Verse. It comes out December 14th. So that's what, Friday? Friday.
This upcoming Friday.
Yeah, it was so cool. I've never been to a pre-screening movie before. Have you guys been?
That's my. I think that's my very first time.
Yeah. So it felt kind of exclusive.
It was cool.
Very
yeah.
VIP.
Yeah.
Well, especially because there was some of our names actually on those little.
Yeah, they saved a spot for us right there. So yeah, it
made
was.
me feel important.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
The movie theater was super crowded. They have everybody from older adults to little kids, obviously.
Yeah.
So it was really cool. But yeah, just touching on exactly that Spider-Verse, just the animation. What'd you guys think of the animation style?
It was one of the coolest I've ever seen, if not the best animation I've ever seen, just because it was so different.
Yeah, so many different styles. Some of it looked almost like 3D, like you should have had glasses on, and then other parts were old school animation, sort of Looney Tunes looking. And then a new animation style.
Yeah. They really stepped the bar up. Wasn't it who was the creator or the main people? I want to say I have.
Was that Phil Lord and Christopher Miller?
Yeah, and they've worked on
the Lego Movie.
Yes.
Yeah, was kind of their.
So there's experienced animators in there, and actually in our upcoming winter issue, one of our editors got to talk to Josh Beveridge, who is an animator.
Yep.
So stay tuned for that article. He really breaks down like you guys were saying. It's like a new style. He was talking about animating in 2s, which is kind of the frame rate that they let something hold during it. So like you were saying, Looney Tunes or Disney, I want to say they do animation in 1s. So every frame is a different picture. But something with those 2s that helps it kind of give it more a real life kind of holding stuff.
Depth.
Yeah. So there's different ways. So I think doing it in that, and I want to say it might have been one of the first CGC movies, CGI movies that were done in this style.
Yeah.
So
and I think Beveridge talks about in that article how he would still do hand-drawn overlays. So it was computer-generated plus animated, hand animated.
Yeah, they overlaid, they did a lot of this stuff in Photoshop, I know, and it was a lot of teamwork, hard working. They even worked with, obviously, they did a lot of the work in Photoshop. So just showing that style, that comic book style that almost has that artsy feel, but still had real with the city looking real CGI
I
and
love
stuff.
how they did that. They incorporated these comic elements that while keeping everything really modern and new. I thought it was
I think
really
you
dynamic.
said, he touched on that line drawing in 2, and I want to say how after a comic book they go in and to put in the words and stuff too. So you said having that just extra style of emotion. Sometimes those words ah or ooh or bang and pow and stuff like that. Animation, we've seen comic books and cartoons like that, but it definitely raised the bar of like you said, it's probably one of the best, hands down, one of the best animations I've ever seen.
Me too, for sure.
It kind of reminded me of, did you guys ever watch on MTV, it was 2003, and they had that animated Spider-Man show. It was Neil Patrick Harris was the voice of
I heard about that. I never got a chance to watch
one season long. I mean, it was kind of like that, but we're talking about magnified by 1,000.
Yeah, a couple years later.
Yeah. It was super cool though. Loved the animation. That's definitely just worth the price of admission.
Just the animation alone.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's something you want to see in theaters. Watching it on a laptop would really just be an entirely different experience.
And it wasn't even 3D, like you said, but it almost felt during the movie, I remember thinking a couple times it wasn't even an animation. After it was done, I was that was an animated movie we just watched. It was one of those.
Kind of took a second.
Yeah.
And you could definitely see the Lego movie influence kind of throughout. We'll get kind of more into this when we talk story bits and whatnot. You could definitely see that kind of way that they approach it, that kind of creative way of looking at it.
And so even to not only the animations, I know we want to talk on the great cast that they had.
Casting was incredible for that. I loved who was it? It was Spider-Ham was
Spider-Ham.
John Mulaney.
John
So
Mulaney was
good.
Spider-Ham. There was a couple
Yeah.
little like sneaks because you would have like it goes over your head, but like a lot of the voice actors, I have a list here.
Yeah, I loved Nicolas Cage
Nicolas-
as
Yep.
Spider-Man
Nicolas
Noir.
Cage was Spider-Man Noir, which is
Yeah.
like a 1930s Spider-Man, so he kind of
He
had
was
that
great.
like it was definitely comedic relief.
Yeah.
Him and
Yeah.
Spider-Ham, John Mulaney, the
Mhm.
actor. Chris Pine, did you know Chris Pine was in there?
Oh, really?
Yeah,
He
that's
voiced
right.
the original Peter Parker.
Oh.
Yeah.
And then we have Shamik Moore, who played Miles Morales.
Yep.
Jake Johnson, who played Peter B. Parker, which
Yeah.
was the old part. And that's he's a New Girl. Jake
Yeah,
Johnson.
he
He's
plays Nick.
Nick. Yeah,
Right.
I love that character
Great
too.
comedic timing.
Yeah.
He added a lot to the.
There was a lot of good people. Zoe Kravitz, Marashida Ali, who played Uncle Aaron. He's in Luke Cage. He plays
Oh yeah.
Cottonmouth. He plays Cottonmouth.
Oh, and Lily Tomlin was in there too?
Lily
but-
Tomlin.
was,
She
Aunt
played
May.
Aunt May.
Aunt
Yeah.
May, yeah.
And lastly, I have Brian Tyree Henry, who played Jefferson Davis, who is Miles Morales' dad. He's
Oh,
the
he
actor
was
from
great.
Atlanta. The actor from Atlanta,
Oh.
the brother or the cousin, Paperboy or something like. Have you seen Atlanta?
Yeah.
So it was just like filled with a good cast. I mean,
So well
obviously
casted.
putting the animation with like the voice, it's like it has to go together. Like
Yeah, and those two came together really well for like the acting and the animation. It seemed like the animation was being acted. I
Yeah.
mean, the facial,
I wanna
like the gestures and facial like expressive-ness
Yeah,
of all the
yeah.
characters was on point.
So I right before this, I was watching some interviews on IMDb, and there's an interview with Jake Johnson, who plays Peter Parker, and he was saying that they would record like visually them doing the voice scenes. So like if he had his posture and he said like, "Hey, how are you doing?" or like a little "Hey, how you doing?" they would match that posture in the actual scene. So the animators would kind of go in after and like reanimate. So like
It really came through.
I think that's what you're talking about. It, like really kind of just showed some of the way.
It seemed like it was being acted. I mean, it was so spot on.
He said too that they would like also record some of the like when you're saying hello or like ahem or something like that, like you kind of get like a little breath like right before you talk, and usually in voice acting they would cut all that out. So it's kind of weird seeing that like maybe they're changing the style of that, but I think just having that little like extra little breath beforehand, it kind of gave it you can put a realism like human, like real people are doing it. So
Well, that's why there's a lot of this film that you really look at it and it's kind of like this could have been live action almost.
Yeah.
Like I could have seen this being just a straight up like MCU style.
there was like
live
when
action
Spider-Man
movie.
swinging, and I want to say they
Yeah.
too. If I read somewhere like you said, they recorded the actors, but they also like if Spider-Man was swinging or doing something, they would record people too to get that real like physics of how people look. So I want to say they kind of even overlaid some like real live action stuff, but then overlaid it with animation to give it that like
Oh,
just
how
that
cool.
extra layer. Yeah, so so much work had to go into so hands down like Sony for that, just animating that like
It was beautiful.
just speechless. All of us are just
I know,
like,
yeah.
I know it sounds
I-
like a little
Well,
too
it-
complimentary, but it blew my mind.
And
I
it's
was
tough
like, wow.
to actually like explain something like that.
I want to say on Rotten Tomatoes, it literally had 100. It had like 100 on Rotten Tomatoes.
Wow,
So
I'm
like,
not surprised though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so and then what? Like just lastly, just what touching on the way that they brought the representation for all these characters, like not even knowing about all the different Spider-Men, but like how they kind of brought into like they have Miles Morales, who's like African American, so that totally was getting to that next level of representation.
And his mom was like Spanish speaking, so it brought in like another language. And
right.
then there were several female spider women, spider people.
Spider
that
woman.
were really great. And I liked how the spider women weren't like, they didn't have to be a romantic interest to be included in the story.
There was Penny Parker, who is kind of like a Asian what's the style, anime
It's
style.
kind of like an anime style.
So Penny
and
Parker, and
the
then
spider like man of that universe is more of like a machine that
had a
she
mech
controls.
universe. Yeah, she has a mech
which was
universe.
really like.
I like
so it's totally
Yeah.
anime style, picking up on that culture.
Yeah.
And then obviously Gwen Stacy, who's a female role. So
She was great. And I mean there was a little bit of romance there with Stacy, but I liked how at the end
Miles
there
trying to
was
flirt, flying to
yeah,
flirt
a little
with her.
flirt, but it didn't have to be like they made out.
It
or
still was
whatever. Like,
childish. It still had that kid heart.
But she
Yeah.
had her own deal, and I liked that.
She was a little kind of more like by herself. She had that like pride, independent pride to her. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's definitely it's gonna be great. That new generation it just needs that too. There's gonna be.
I liked it. It brought like a lot more depth to it all.
I read too. Like I said, I was watching some interviews and Shamik and Jake Johnson were doing like at Comic-Con, I want to say they were doing question Q&As, and Jake Johnson was telling how like somebody asked Shamik like just to give their it was like a mother, an African American mother, and she was saying to give like her son a shout out, and she was just saying how important it is, like her 8-year-old son is just like there's gonna be a black Spider-Man, like you don't really think about that. Like I know even being like Mexican, I know like there was a couple Mexican superhero, like they're trying to speckle out here and there, but like having that as a kid, I think is really gonna be like it's one of those things that hold you don't think
about. And even
about.
as an adult, I just liked seeing Spider-Women. I was like, yay, Spider-Woman.
Yeah, girl version. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think there's like a lot of people that aren't aware of like Miles Morales or Spider-Gwen is technically her name.
Was that
right?
her name?
Yeah.
Gwen Stacy is her like but she turns into
Spider-Gwen.
Oh,
like I think a lot of people don't even really know about like those characters themselves.
I want to say
there's so many different universes in Spider-Man.
Yeah. And did those exist before this?
Yeah, I think those are.
So
both
they were written in the comic
cool.
books. Like Spider-Ham was like from the 80s,
Really?
and Spider-Man Noir came out in like 2016, and Gwen Stacy, I want to say, don't quote me on all this too.
We might be lying.
Comic
So
book nerds.
just,
I want to say
2014.
2014.
Don't sue us.
So it's still kind of new, yes, but like
That's
just
so
in
cool.
just in the comic books, like the spike of like just their first appearances. A lot of people, since this movie's coming out, those are going up in prices because like people want to know like Gwen Stacy's first appearance and
and
Spider-Man.
as someone who like I don't follow the Spider comics, so not knowing about them, it was still so easy to like fall in love with those characters, even though they didn't get to expand all of them, like go into detail about them.
It really introduces them the
I
right
still
way.
enjoyed getting to introduce to them.
Well, I think they're already planning like future movies for these too, like future Spider-Verse kind of films.
Oh yeah.
I think probably to kind of expand, because even at the end, I remember thinking like I really did want to spend more time with like all these different characters.
Right.
It almost feels like, I mean, I don't want to say I got like shortchanged, but it felt like you wanted to like watch
you were
them
interested in all the major ones, yeah. I mean, without giving too many spoilers, they introduced the Spider-Ham was like a pig who was just like funny and entertaining and just comedic. Like you said, it kind of had a little bit that wide spectrum of everybody. So it was like, I think just wanting to know that little taste, that's good.
Yeah. I mean, I think just overall the writing of the film kind of blew us all away pretty much, because it didn't feel like typical superhero movie. I think we're all pretty... It's kind of overdone now with the typical, especially the Spider-Man story, because we know the cliche Spider-Man story so well now. And it added so many different little elements.
Comes great responsibility.
I don't think he says that. No, he says, gotta catch them all.
But
I think the writing was really good. The humor, overall, I enjoyed. Sometimes it was a bit much, and that's kind of a problem with, I think, a lot of, like, modern comic book movies and kind of modern movies. We were talking about this earlier with, like, modern movies just want to be so quippy. But I think it overall balanced it really well. It was like it was funny throughout.
It was one of the few movies I've ever been to where the audience was laughing loudly throughout. And true, it was a pre-selected audience who was interested in it already, right? Because they got to go to the screening.
Yeah.
But everybody was laughing. I mean, kids, adults. It just seemed like
I clapped a couple times because there's like Spider-Man Easter eggs like throughout the movie, even like just little tiny tidbits.
One of my favorites of the Easter eggs, it's not really a spoiler.
Yeah, no spoiler.
When Miles is looking through his phone, one of his contacts was Brian Bendis. Did you see that?
Yeah, that was one of the ones that I was talking about.
I thought that was really cool.
There was other ones like that too, little sneak peeks. Even like at the end, make sure to stay for the end of the credits, the ending credits.
I didn't.
I'm glad we did.
Obviously, they did a farewell to Steve Ditko and Stan Lee, the late
really
great
cool
comic. So
that was awesome.
Stay tuned for that. Yeah, definitely. I mean, they had to pay homage to the creators of Spider-Man. So it was great. Like you said, that story arc, they just kind of... It wasn't like they threw you in, they introduced... Because people that didn't know about the Spider-Gwen and Spider-Ham, they kind of threw you into that multiverse. And the way that they kind of even started getting repetitive, and they were like, you
Yeah.
already know the story now.
Yeah.
Right. I
So
appreciated that.
They kind of, it was interesting. I like that.
It's so weird because this film is actually super close plot wise. Like 10 years ago, there was a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle animated movie that was actually
With
kind of
the
similar
multiverse?
with the
What?
multiverse because
No
there's been
way.
all these different incarnations.
But see, some of these multiverse stories are kind of been going on even since like the 80s and stuff like that. And so people taking that kind of story arc and just like Spider-Man now has so many different Spider-Man.
Yeah, well, I guess it makes sense just because things get rebooted so often now.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, there was a film that was literally kind of the same. I'm not saying they ripped them off. Sony, please. Please keep giving us free tickets to stuff.
Right.
But it was kind of very similar that way. And actually, I think very much the same way that they worked on the Lego movie, and then the Lego movie came out and everyone wanted to make like their own like version of that.
Yeah.
I could see a lot more of these kind of coming out. These kind of like multiverse stories. Like we're going to have
it doesn't
different
hold,
Batmen working
it's
together.
not so
and stuff
serious.
Right.
Like
we're
you
gonna
said,
get.
that continuity doesn't have to hold strong like the Batman and like you said, the continuity doesn't really hold. You can kind of play around with different things.
Yeah.
And the concept lended itself well to the different animation styles because that's how it made sense in my mind. Like, why is Spider-Ham animated like this and Noir is animated like this?
Right.
But because it's the Spider-Verse and things have been like all thrown askew, it made sense to see things and all this different like textural and it made sense to see everything animated differently.
Yeah. It was great.
I really want a Marmaduke into the multiverse kind of movie because there's been so many incarnations and people don't understand
multiverse,
the
Marmaduke.
depth of it. No, but I would watch a Batman
Clifford
one
is one.
Batman,
with like Adam
different
West
Batman.
and then
Oh,
going
yeah.
up to
66.
I
You
would
think
watch that.
DC might copy off and do
I think that they
an
will.
animated style?
Yeah, DC never
Well,
copies Marvel.
Right. Well, they own it with that animated Batman. That's like huge because they have like everything.
And those are really good. I think DC's always done a good job with their animated feature lengths.
I guess the difference is like this is a theater release where I don't think the DC ones ever get released in theaters, do they?
No,
Yeah.
but it didn't feel like it felt like it needed to
Sony
be released in the
definitely
theater.
set the bar because like think about it, even in a couple of years we'll see. I mean, obviously we'll see what other animation studios and like Pixar and now that like Disney owns the rights to Marvel and Spider-Man, this is like the last like Sony thing. So it's gonna be interesting seeing like where they go from here.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's
Gosh,
true.
Disney needs to stop buying stuff.
Disney,
I
stop
know,
buying
Like,
things.
come on.
They own everything.
If they buy Minions and then ruin that, then I'm gonna have no franchises
thought
left
they-
that I enjoy.
Don't
Minion?
they already own
Pixar?
them?
I'm sure
Yeah.
they do.
They
I
do.
don't know. Wait, which one's Minions? Is that
Isn't
Yeah,
that
that's
somebody owns it? I don't
Despicable
know.
Despicable Me.
Yeah,
Pixar, Disney.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Those things that kids like.
Well, yeah, no, I definitely like if I had more thumbs or more spider webs, I
More
would
thumbs.
give that movie like so many thumbs
5
up,
webs.
like 5 webs.
Really?
Yeah, 5 webs. What would you? I mean, obviously,
Well-
it's like hands down.
Well, I'm like, so I'm writing the official review. Check out the website innotechtoday.com to read it eventually.
Spoiler heavy?
It'll have some spoilers, I think. I'm usually pretty good about that. I talk about though how I've seen every single Spider-Man film, almost every one in theaters, and different experiences, like walking out. Like first Spider-Man, it just seems so cool and actually like edgier than what you'd expect from like a Spider-Man movie. Spider-Man 2 built up on that so much. Spider-Man 3, I was really befuddled. That was just weird. It
was
like,
that you
weird
that was just
doing
telling me? I think right before someone was saying they like were throwing popcorn.
Oh, Dylan was saying that.
Oh, one of our managing editors said that he's seen Spider-Man 3 in theaters, and after it was over, like people were throwing popcorn at. So these Spider-Man fans and just comic book fans in general are like so hardcore.
Well,
like
they were yelling at the screen when I saw it. It was like 2007.
they were yelling.
And he had, when he came out after the symbiotes, he had the hair, and somebody was just like, "You emo or something," and then like 3 people laughed. So
yeah,
it
no,
was
they
worth it.
set the bar. Yeah, after those, I think the bar was a little low, but this is definitely.
Well, then there's the Amazing Spider-Man movies, which I don't think anyone's gonna talk about ever again. Those just kind of like came and went like a summer breeze.
Yeah.
I don't have good words.
But that
today.
article, look forward to that article. That'll be really cool.
Yeah, it should be cool. Definitely, I would check it out. I would definitely recommend it. I think I'd probably give it like 9 or 9.5 out of 10. I don't think I had any.
What would
real
you out of a
issues
10?
with it.
Out of a 10?
As far as like animated films,
All over.
I think just,
all movies all together.
Yeah.
all movies. Gosh, yeah, high. I would say 8 out of 10.
8.
I would say it's better than Citizen Kane because I've never seen Citizen Kane.
Throwing Gone with the Wind.
Nobody wants
Throwing those
Yeah.
oldies.
But as far as animated movies, especially those that I've like been able to see in the theater, like 10 out of 10 for sure.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Best animated film.
Yeah.
Like, well, I mean, in that style. I don't want to.
It's got its own. It's got its own kind of style too, because it separates from like Pixar. It kind of put it in its own category with. It's not like CGI, like kind of.
It seemed like its own thing.
Yeah, it has its comic book style, like kind of flat still, but had three. Yeah, I would put it in its own little category almost. Like
I'm gonna put in a lock here, a little bit of a wager.
Uh-oh.
I'm sure that it's going to sweep so many awards for animation.
Oh yeah.
Just because I think people are so sick of the
and the box
typical
office
Pixar look.
The box office, I think it'll totally crush. Because I mean, what movies are out right now? Like other than
It was a rough one. I think Wreck-It Ralph was like the last big one.
Yeah,
and then what else is coming out? Aquaman's coming out.
Oh, so I want to say too, when you go on IMDb, it has Spider-Verse and like Aquaman kind of pitted together. So I want to see what the box office sales are.
Interesting.
Are you gonna take a wager? You want Aquaman or Spider-Verse?
Before I do, I just want to correct you. You've been saying IMBD.
IMDb?
It's DB this whole time.
Dang it!
I didn't want to correct
me.
I should have waited, and we should have gone back and edited it.
IMDb.
Just for once, I wanted to seem like
I'm
I knew something.
dyslexic anyways, so who knows what I've been saying this whole time.
Between Aquaman and the Spider-Man, I think it's got to be. I mean, I still need to see Aquaman.
That's true. Yeah.
Warner Brothers, if you're listening to this podcast, please send us some
some
tickets to
tickets.
that, please. That'd be really sweet of you.
No.
I think just definitely Spider-Man, just for the originality of it. I just think Aquaman might be more typical
repeat.
superhero fare.
Yeah, repeat. Yeah.
Really?
So go see it with your kids, by yourself, with anybody. It comes out
Grandparents.
Friday. Yeah.
Yeah. Bring your maid. I don't know. Whoever you want to bring. Well, that just about wraps it up for this very special episode of the Weekly Buffer. We'll probably be back to our usual format next week, where we just go over some stories. But yeah, make sure to check out Into the Spider-Verse, and we will see you next week. I forgot how we close up this podcast.
Until then.
Cheers.